Welcome to Brick School Class 5. Today we're going to be diving into containers and sections. Maybe not the most exciting topic ever, but it'll get you to understand some of the nuances and some of the ideology behind it. Now, first, before we even look at it, let's talk about what is a section and what is a container. A section is any part of a website that has a singular kind of idea. So let's just take a look at a site here real quick. This is bricksfx, and in the first section, we have kind of your hero. It's a get to know the product. Next section, a bit more detail. And if you notice, I use a slight transition, a different color, or, there's lots of ways to do this. And then into the next, which is kind of a comparison section. And you understand what I'm saying? That each section should have a singular point. You shouldn't have a section that, talks about your team and then gives you some social proof and then has a call to action all in one section. You really want to break that up. And if we look at, say, this sample page I've put together, it doesn't even always have to visibly be different. For instance, this card section is a section. In fact, if we go here, you'll see that that's a section. The next part, which is a little story thing, is a section. So really what is important is a singular purpose and a singular idea inside of a section. So what then is a container? Well, a container is kind of the left and right walls that contain the width of your content, or else everything would go right to the edge. And some sites like doing that. However, when you're designing for a large screen, it almost never looks great to go right to the edge. You're far better off containing it at a certain point. So now let's go into the builder and actually look at what's happening behind the scenes. We're going to add a section. And if you have any framework whatsoever, it probably starts looking something like this, where you have your container inside of your section. If you notice, there's a built-in padding. And what I want you to understand is that's not just there magically. It's quite easy to see exactly how it got there. So let's go to the style of our section. And as you can see, there's some values already put in there. Well, where did those come from? Did they just drop out of the sky? No, they're actually, when you set up your framework, you probably had to put in a theme style, and or some of them do it automatically, but if you did it manually or whatever, you come in here and you check out your section, and you'll see that, oh, here's where these values are. I have a 2XL, and then on the top and the bottom, and then I've got a medium on the side, which gives me a gutter. That's kind of what this space is here. Now, I typically use a medium because the medium size isn't set in stone either. And what I mean by that is, let's go back. See, if I just put in 28 pixels here, it would be 28 pixels and across all viewports. However, that wouldn't look very good when you went down to a mobile, would it? You'd have the big gap that you have on your desktop on your mobile. It would look kind of stupid. So let's go down and see what happens. See there, it turned to 17.8. And in fact, this is set quite high. If I take this down to, I don't know, let's say 300, I tell you what, let's go 330, and we'll press enter. And if I go out of that and come back in, now you see it's down to 16. So your gutter and your top and bottom paddings of your section are being responsive. And that's kind of the whole point of why we did the framework video. This is where you're seeing it actually come to life. So let's actually look at what what the value is. Oh, why is it that sizing, you know? If I come to my space M, which is, remember what our gutters were, we see that it's a clamp. So all a clamp is it's really just a way of saying, look, on the small side, the min, we want this number, and on the big side, the max, we want this number. And you know, we want to have it as a sliding scale. And you can see that happening right here. So in the space M that we have 1.6 rem, which, as we remember with our sizing, that means it's 16 pixels, right? On the min, which in this case would be the mobile. Okay. On the high side, look at that number, 2.8, which, if you remember back here on the desktop, 2.8 rem is, quick kids, you bet, 28 pixels. And there it is, the 28 pixels. So now you understand where that number comes from. So why does this really matter? If your thing is just doing it automatically, what does it matter? Because sometimes you got to kind of fudge with things. Let me show you a quick example. Actually, on BricksFX, I have this horrible thing. I love tilting images. I just, instead of being straight up and down, I turn them. Well, that messes with how much padding I have. So what I typically do is, on a section where I do this, mostly this is on the mobile side of things, because you can kind of fudge it. There's a lot of padding on the desktop, right? But on the mobile side of things, I don't have a lot of room. And if you turn it, now you possibly have some bleed. So what I'll do is I'll go into that section and I'll actually mess with the padding just to give it a little more, So what I might do is I might actually come in here and go, okay, space M, which, or I should say on this one, 2XL, should be the same as up here, right? But here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this in a calc function, which is nothing more than make this calculation, right? I'm going to take our regular 2XL, which is that 96, and I'm going to add, I don't know, 20 pixels, which would be 2 rem, right? Just kind of an example of how I would do it inside of this. Now it's still going to stay responsive because we're using that clamp from your framework. And again, all frameworks work the same. It doesn't matter. I don't care if you're using Brickstyler, if you're using Core or ATF. I don't care. They all work the same way. That's all really the framework is those set of clamps, right? So let's go ahead and remove that. And if you see, I deleted it and all those values are still there, right? Well, again, we know why. They're in the theme style. So that makes sense. Now, the other really cool thing about knowing how to contort your section with its padding and stuff is that you could do some kind of unusual things. Now, this is just going to be a slight preview because this gets a lot more detailed, but I'd just like to show you. Let's say we have this section and in the background it has a color, but this, the container has a just whatever, white. Okay. Now, and inside of that, let's go ahead and just stick a heading and some basic text. All right. Now, in this container, we are going to go ahead and give it some padding. So we'll select them all and we'll quickly go down and select our medium-sized padding. And if you're paying attention, we now know this here is medium size. This is space M. Well, that's space M. So you get that nice, dead bang on. You're doing great, Billy. But here's the thing. What if we didn't want it to take up 100%? But we also don't want to just add superfluous boxes in there just to have extra crap to push this over to the side, right? Well, we can handle that on the section. We could go into that section in the layout. Again, this would have a kind of a niche reason for doing this, but I just kind of want to show it to you so that you understand that you're not bound in, so on this padding, instead of the space M, we're going to actually put in 50%. And now, let's say you had a background image here or something like that. You've added almost nothing. You don't have, right in your hero to have empty divs. That's not a great idea. So you've pushed it off to the side and maybe you're using it for kind of an illusion kind of thing. But what's really nice is as you go through the different sizes, you see it's staying at that 50% of your hero. Now, this is a great way to drop in, say, a contact form or something like that. Instead of just adding extra boxes to move that thing over, you don't really have to worry about it. You see what I'm saying? All right. Also, it can really lead to some fun animations because you could mess with that side, maybe on a hover, it changes the width. So it kind of gives it that illusion. So that's basically it. We're not going to do a long video on this because it's pretty straightforward. But again, I just got to remember when you're watching these core videos that I'm talking also to people that maybe have never even opened up Bricks before. So just trying to show them kind of what the idea is, right? More advanced classes are coming. We're just getting through the core essentials of understanding things here. So I think we've basically covered everything you need to know about sections and containers and what they're for. The most important part about this video is that each section should have one idea, one topic, one reason for being. And if you need to have more containers inside of a section, you can, but there's really no benefit to it. At that point, you might as well just add a few extra blocks and whatnot. So hopefully this video showed you a little bit, and in the next video, we're going to get into something a little more in depth, and that'll be the different types of blocks and divisions and all that. All right, so see you in the next class and have a great day.